You became a fitness instructor because you wanted to make a difference. You wanted people to leave your classes feeling stronger, healthier, more confident, or maybe you just wanted to help people fall in love with movement the same way you did. And for a while, that's exactly how it felt. But somewhere along the way, I think many of us started believing something that simply isn't true. That every class has to be different. Different playlists, different exercises, different themes, different choreography, week after week after week. And I know that pressure because I felt it myself. I used to spend hours planning classes, convinced that if I repeated too much, people would just get bored. So every week I try to come up with something new, something more creative, something more impressive than the week before. But eventually I realized I was solving the wrong problem. Because people don't come back because your class was different. They come back because they remember it. And after spending years teaching group fitness, yoga, and mind-body classes, I've become convinced that participants rarely remember your squats. They don't remember your lunges, and they definitely don't remember that clever transition that you spent 20 minutes worrying about. But they do remember how your class made them feel. I'm Luke Beavis, and I help group fitness instructors create classes that people genuinely look forward to coming back to. Not by constantly reinventing everything, but by creating experiences people remember. And today I want to share 5 things I genuinely believe participants remember about your classes. Because once you understand these 5 things, it changes the way you plan. It changes the way you coach, and ultimately it changes why people choose to come back week after week. So before I get into it, if you'd like some practical tools to help you put these ideas into action, I've created a free Ultimate Fitness Instructor Toolkit. Inside you'll find my class planning sheet, coaching script template, class experience checklist, and over 30 ready-to-use coaching cues to help you spend less time planning and create classes people genuinely remember. And you'll find the link in the descriptions below. Right, let's get into it. So people remember progress, not perfection. I think one of the biggest myths in our industry is that members need constant variety to stay motivated. I don't believe that's true. I think what people really want is to feel like they're making progress. Not perfect, not exhausted, not destroyed, just better. Participants want to leave your class thinking, I'm not getting as out of breath as I used to, or my balance is improving, or perhaps they can finally do that movement that they were practicing a few weeks ago. And there's actually a psychological reason for that. Psychologists developed something called self-determination theory, and one of its core principles is competence. So put simply, we're far more likely to stick with something when we feel capable and can see ourselves improving. And when you think about it, that makes perfect sense. If every class is completely different, when do people ever get the chance to feel successful? Yet I think many instructors accidentally work against this. We assume members want constant novelty. New exercises, new playlists, new themes, new choreography, new everything. And honestly, I used to think exactly the same. And early in my career, I changed my workouts every single week because I thought that's what great instructors did. I thought people would get bored, and I thought I needed to keep impressing them. So every week I was creating something new. Not only did I quickly become burnt out trying to reinvent the wheel, but I wasn't seeing the engagement I thought that I would. People weren't progressing. They weren't building confidence, and I was putting myself under huge pressure every single week. Eventually, I decided to experiment. Instead of changing everything every week, I kept the same workout structure for 6 weeks. And something really interesting happened. People started coming back consistently. They became more engaged, and they stayed after class to chat. They started telling me that they were looking forward to next week because they knew what was coming. They had the confidence to intensify, confidence to try a different option, and confidence to recognize how far they'd come. And that's when I realized something that stayed with me ever since. Repetition builds confidence, and confidence builds retention. I think instructors massively overestimate how much variety members want and underestimate how much confidence people crave. Because progress requires familiarity. Think about strength training. Nobody squats once and expects to become stronger. Progress comes from repeating movements, developing skill, and building confidence over time. And group fitness is no different. Participants become familiar with the experience. They feel successful, and success creates momentum. One of the most underrated skills an instructor can develop isn't knowing what to change, it's knowing what not to change. Because people don't remember perfection, they remember progress. I think another reason people remember your classes has nothing to do with the exercises themselves. It's what they learned while they were doing them. Most instructors are very good at telling people what to do. Lift your chest, brace your core, breathe, slow it down. And those cues absolutely matter. But they only tell people how to perform the movement. The instructors people remember go one step further. They explain why it matters. Instead of simply saying, engage your glutes, you might explain how stronger glutes help support the knees and make everyday activities like climbing stairs feel easier. And then instead of saying, brace your core, you might say, think about lifting a heavy shopping bag off the floor. That's the kind of strength we're building here. And suddenly that exercise has meaning. And meaning is what people remember. There's actually another psychological principle behind this, and it's called self-efficiency. And it's basically our belief in our ability to succeed. And research has constantly shown that when people understand what they're doing and believe they can do it successfully, they're much more likely to stick with physical activity. And I think that's really important because we're not just trying to get people through today's class. We're trying to help them build a lifelong relationship with movement. And when someone understands why an exercise matters, when they notice it helping them in everyday life, and when they leave feeling just a little more capable than when they walked in, that's the kind of experience that sticks. People don't just remember exercises, they remember understanding something new about their body. And they remember realizing why movement matters. They remember discovering when they were capable of more than they thought. And they remember the instructor who helped them make those discoveries. Because great instructors don't just teach movement, they teach understanding, they teach confidence, and they teach meaning. Another thing that people remember is connection. And if there's one thing I've learned after all these years of teaching, it's this. People rarely talk about their favorite instructor because of the workout. Think about it. Have you ever heard someone say, she programs amazing lunges, or he's got the best burpees? Probably not. Instead, they say things like, I always feel welcome in her classes, or he's so encouraging, or everyone's really friendly. Or perhaps it's just, I love the atmosphere. And I think that tells us something. People don't just come to group fitness for exercise, they come for connection. And in fact, I'd go as far as saying that connection is one of the most overlooked coaching skills there is. Because connection isn't about being loud. It isn't about trying to be the funniest instructor in the room. And it certainly isn't about performing. It's about making people feel like they belong. It's learning names, making eye contact, celebrating someone's progress, or checking in before class, asking how their week's been. Perhaps it's noticing when someone's been away, or even remembering an injury they mentioned a few weeks ago. Those moments might only take a few seconds, but they leave a lasting impression. And research constantly shows that people are far more likely to stick with exercise when they feel supported and experience a genuine sense of belonging. And honestly, that shouldn't really surprise us. Humans have always been wired for connection. And group fitness has never really been just about exercise. It's about community. And I actually think one of the biggest mistakes instructors make is believing they need to entertain people. They think they need to be louder, more energetic, more charismatic, more funny. But in my experience, The instructors people remember most aren't the biggest personalities. They're the people who make others feel seen. They're present, they're encouraging, and they create an environment where people feel comfortable enough to be themselves. Because long after participants have forgotten the workout, they'll remember how they felt in the room. And very often, that's the real reason they come back. People also remember the atmosphere. And I think this is one of the most underestimated parts of great teaching. Participants don't just remember what happened in your class. They remember what it felt like to be there. The energy, the rhythm, the flow, the atmosphere. Think about some of your favorite experiences in life. Perhaps it's a concert or a holiday, a sporting event or a wedding. You probably couldn't tell me every detail, but I bet you remember exactly how it made you feel. And classes are no different. And that's why I believe atmosphere isn't something that just happens. It's something great instructors intentionally create. One of the biggest contributors to that atmosphere is music. I don't see music as background noise. I see it as part of the coaching. Music creates anticipation. It creates emotion, energy. It creates calm. And sometimes it communicates things that words simply can't. And one of the biggest mistakes I see instructors make is trying to compete with the music instead of working with it. Every second gets filled with talking, cue after cue, instruction after instruction, as if silence is something to avoid. But I've learned that not every second needs your voice. Sometimes the most powerful coaching happens when you step back. Allow people to experience the movement and the music together. And that's often where the magic happens. And in my own Zone Fitness Flow classes, I've lost count of the number of people who've come up to me afterwards just to ask what a particular song was called. People remember entire releases because of the music. That song in the Hip series or that track from Flow 3, they remember how those songs made them feel. And I think that tells us something. People rarely remember individual exercises, but they absolutely remember the atmosphere you created. They remember the energy, the emotion, they remember the experience, because music isn't just something people hear, it's something people feel. And when you combine great coaching with the right music, you create moments people remember long after they've left the studio. And my final point today, number 5, people remember how they felt afterwards. And if there's one thing I'd love you to take away from this video, it's this. People don't remember every exercise. They remember how you made them feel. Not necessarily during the class, but afterwards. Did they leave feeling stronger, calmer, more capable? Were they proud of themselves? Do they feel less stressed? Or perhaps more confident? Because that's what stays with them. Nobody comes to your class because they want burpees, or planks, or squats. They come because of what those things give them. They want to feel healthier, stronger, more energized, less stressed, more confident. Movement is simply the vehicle. The feeling is the destination. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts an instructor can make. Average instructors start by asking, what exercises shall I teach today? Great instructors start by asking, how do I want people to feel when they leave? Or what do I want them to learn? Or what experience do I want to create? Because once you're clear on the outcome, everything else becomes easier. Your planning becomes easier. Your coaching becomes more intentional. And your classes become more memorable. That's exactly why I'm such a big believer in class planning and scripting. Not because I want instructors reading from a script, far from it, but because when you've already thought about the experience you want to create, you're free to be fully present with the people in front of you. You're no longer trying to think of the next thing to say, and you're simply coaching. And that's where confidence comes from. Not knowing every cue, but knowing exactly what experience you're trying to create. And that's also why I created my free Ultimate Fitness Instructor Toolkit. Inside you'll find the exact planning template coaching script template, class experience checklist, and over 30 ready-to-use coaching cues that I use to create classes people genuinely remember. Because I honestly believe the difference between an average instructor and an exceptional one rarely comes down to talent. It comes down to clarity, intention, and consistency. Not more qualifications, not more information, just better implementation. Because workouts might get people through the door, but experiences are what bring them back. I'd like to leave you with one final thought. As instructors, it's so easy to become obsessed with programming. More choreography, more playlists, or trying to make every class completely different. But maybe that's never been the goal. Maybe the goal isn't to create classes people have never seen before. Maybe the goal is to create experiences people never forget. Because people don't come back because your class was different. They come back because they remember it. They remember the progress they made. They remember what they learned. They remember the connection they felt. And they remember the atmosphere you created. And ultimately, they remember how they felt when they walked out of the room. So next time you're planning a class, don't start by asking, what exercises am I going to teach today? Start by asking, what experience do I want people to leave with? Because people won't remember every squat. They won't remember every lunge or every coaching cue, but they will remember how you made them feel. And I think that's what great teaching is really about. If you can consistently create that, you're not just building better classes, you're building loyalty. You're building community. And you're becoming the instructor people genuinely look forward to seeing every single week. And if you'd like some help putting these ideas into practice, you can download my free Ultimate Fitness Instructor Toolkit using the description below. And if you love teaching but feel like it's becoming heavier than it should, too much planning, too much pressure, too many restrictions, I've also created a free 3-day instructor freedom reset. And over 3 short videos, I'll show you why so many instructors end up feeling burnt out and how creating a simple teaching system can help you spend less time planning, coach with more confidence, and enjoy teaching again. You'll find both links in the description. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think people remember most about your classes? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.